10. Infectious diseases. The infectious diseases are caused by pathogens that are transmitted from one human host to another. Some, like Plasmodium that causes malaria, are transmitted by vectors, but there are many other methods of transmission, such as through water and food or during sexual activity. The study of pathogens and their mode of transmission is essential if the diseases are to be controlled and ultimately prevented. 10.1 Infectious diseases. Infectious diseases are disorders that are caused by organisms, usually microscopic in size, such as bacteria, viruses, fungi, or parasites that are passed, directly or indirectly, from one person to another. Infectious diseases are caused by organisms known as pathogens that invade the body. Cholera, malaria, HIV, AIDS and tuberculosis, TB, are all examples of infectious diseases. 10.1 Cause and transmission of infectious diseases. Infectious disease, a disease caused by an organism such as a protoctist, bacterium or virus. Pathogen, an organism that causes disease transmission, the transfer of a pathogen from a person infected with that pathogen to an uninfected person. Transmission may occur by direct contact, through the air or water, or by animal vectors, such as insects. Disease carrier, or simply carrier, person infected with a pathogen who shows no symptoms, but can be the source of infection in other people, not carrier of an inherited disease. Transmission cycle, the passage of a pathogen from one host to another is continually repeated as the pathogen infects new hosts. Disease eradication, the complete breakage of the transmission cycle of a pathogen so that there are no more cases of the disease caused by the pathogen anywhere in the world. Endemic disease, a disease that is always in a population. Disease vector, an organism which carries a pathogen from one person to another or from an animal to a human. 10.1 2 Names and types of pathogen causing cholera, malaria, tuberculosis, TB, and HIV, AIDS. Infectious diseases and their causative agents, pathogens, disease causative agents, pathogen, cholera, Vibrio cholera, bacterium, prokaryote, malaria for species of Plasmodium, protoctist, eukaryote, 1. Plasmodium falciparum 2. Plasmodium malariae 3. Plasmodium ovale 4. Plasmodium vivax TB, Mycobacterium tuberculosis and Mycobacterium bovis HIV, AIDS, human immunodeficiency virus, HIV, measles, microbilli virus, smallpox, variola virus. Lecture notes for AS level biology by Muhammad Rashid Chatta. Cell number 030046100457. Cholera. Cholera is caused by the bacterium Vibrio cholerae and is transmitted in water or food contaminated by the feces of infected people. Cholera can be controlled by treating patients with intravenous or oral rehydration therapy and making sure that human feces do not reach the water supply. The disease is prevented by providing clean, chlorinated water and good sanitation. The features of cholera pathogen Vibrio cholerae. Methods of transmission: foodborne, waterborne. Global distribution: Asia, Africa, Latin America. Incubation period: 2 hours to 5 days. Site of action of pathogen: wall of small intestine. Clinical features: severe diarrhea, rice water, loss of water and salts, dehydration, weakness. Methods of diagnosis: dipstick test of rectal swabs, identification of V. cholerae in fecal samples using microscopy. Annual incidence worldwide in 2017. 1.3 million to 4.0 million, who estimate. Annual mortality worldwide in 2017 221,000 to 143,000, who estimate. Lecture notes for AS level biology by Muhammad Rashid Chatta. Cell number 030046100457. Malaria. Malaria is caused by 4 species of Plasmodium. The most dangerous is P. falciparum. Malaria is transmitted by an insect vector, female Anopheles mosquitoes transfer plasmodium from infected to uninfected people. Malaria is controlled in three main ways: by using mosquito nets, more effective if soaked in long-lasting insecticide, by using drugs to prevent plasmodium infecting people. Clinical signs: hyperpyrexia, fever each third or fourth day, chills, sweats, fatigue, vomiting, diaphoresis, absence of adenopathies, splenomegaly, jaundice, paleness, respiratory distress seizures, coma, cerebral malaria. Paraclinical signs: anemia, low platelet count, hyponatremia, hypoglycemia, metabolic acidosis, proteinuria, intravascular disseminated coagulation, opportunistic infections, especially salmonella. The features of malaria pathogen Plasmodium falciparum, P. vivax, P. ovale, P. malariae. Methods of transmission: insect vector, female Anopheles mosquito, about 30 different species, global distribution throughout the tropics and subtropics, endemic in 16 countries, incubation period from a week to a year. Site of action of pathogen: liver, red blood cells, brain. Clinical features: fever, anemia, nausea, headaches, muscle pain, shivering, sweating, enlarged spleen. Methods of diagnosis: dipstick test for malaria antigens in blood, microscopical examination of blood. Annual incidence worldwide in 2017: 219 million cases of malaria in 90 countries, who estimate 92% of cases are in Africa. Annual mortality worldwide in 2017: 435,000 deaths, who estimate 93% deaths are in Africa. Lecture notes for AS Level Biology by Muhammad Rashid Chatta. Cell number 030046100457. Tuberculosis, TB. Symptoms: persistent cough, chest pain, coughing with bloody sputum, shortness of breath, urine discoloration, cloudy and reddish urine, fever with chills, fatigue, etc. TB is caused by the bacteria Mycobacterium tuberculosis, and M. bovis is spread when people infected with the active form of the disease release bacteria in droplets of liquid when they cough or sneeze. Transmission occurs when uninfected people inhale the bacteria. This is most likely to happen when people live in overcrowded housing conditions, and especially where many sleep close together. M. bovis cause TB in cattle, but can be passed to humans. Many people have the inactive form of it in their lungs, but they do not have the disease and do not spread it. The inactive bacteria may become active in people who are malnourished or who become infected with HIV. Drugs are used to treat people with the active form of TB. The treatment may take months or more, as it is difficult to kill the bacteria. Contact tracing is used to find people who may have caught the disease. These people are tested for TB and treated if found to be infected. The BCG vaccine provides some protection against TB, but its effectiveness varies in different parts of the world and decreases with age. The features of TB pathogen: Mycobacterium tuberculosis, Mycobacterium bovis. Methods of transmission: airborne droplets, M. tuberculosis, via undercooked meat and unpasteurized milk, M. bovis. Global distribution worldwide. Incubation period: a few weeks or up to several years. Site of action of pathogen: primary infection in lungs, secondary infections in lymph nodes, bones and gut. Clinical features: racking cough, coughing blood, chest pain, shortness of breath, fever, sweating. Weight loss. Methods of diagnosis: rapid molecular test detecting presence of DNA from M. tuberculosis, microscopical examination of sputum for bacteria, chest X-ray, long-term culture of bacteria, up to 12 weeks. Annual incidence worldwide in 2017: 10 million, who estimate over 90% of cases among adults, more men than women. Annual mortality worldwide in 2017: 1.6 million, including about 300,000 deaths of people who were HIV+, who estimate. AIDS. AIDS is a set of diseases caused by the destruction of the immune system by infection with human immunodeficiency virus, HIV. HIV is transmitted in certain body fluids, blood, semen, vaginal secretions, and breast milk. HIV primarily infects economically active members of populations in developing countries and has an extremely adverse effect on social and economic development. Lecture notes for AS Level Biology by Mohammad Rashid Chatta. Cell number 030046100457. Life expectancy can be greatly extended by using combinations of drugs which interfere with the replication of HIV. However, such treatment is expensive, is difficult to maintain, and some side effects are unpleasant. There is no vaccine for HIV and no cure for AIDS. The features of HIV, AIDS pathogen human immunodeficiency virus, HIV, methods of transmission in semen and vaginal fluids during sexual intercourse, infected blood or blood products contaminate hypodermic syringes mother to fetus across placenta and at birth mother to infant in breast milk, global distribution worldwide, especially in sub-Saharan Africa and Southeast Asia. Incubation period: initial incubation a few weeks, but up to 10 years or more before symptoms of AIDS may develop. Site of action of pathogen: T helper lymphocytes, macrophages, brain cells. Clinical features: HIV infection, flu-like symptoms and then symptomless AIDS, opportunistic infections including pneumonia, TB and cancers, weight loss, diarrhea, fever, sweating, dementia. Methods of diagnosis: testing blood, saliva or urine for the presence of antibodies produced against HIV. Estimated total number of people living with HIV worldwide in 2017: 36.9 million, approximately 67% of these in Sub-Saharan Africa. UNAIDS estimate: estimated number of new cases of HIV infection worldwide in 2017: 1.8 million, UNAIDS estimate. Estimated number of deaths from AIDS related worldwide in 2017: 940,000, UNAIDS estimate. Lecture notes for AS Level Biology by Mohammad Rashid Chatta. Cell number 030046100457. 10.1 to 3 Transmission of cholera, malaria, TB, HIV. The transmission of HIV can be controlled by using barrier methods, e.g. condoms and femtodoms, during sexual intercourse. Educating people to practice safer sex is the only control method currently available to health authorities. Contact tracing is used to find people who may have contracted HIV so that they can be tested and counseled. Transmission of TB occurs when uninfected people inhale the bacteria. This is most likely to happen when people live in overcrowded housing conditions, and especially where many sleep close together. Bovis cause TB in cattle, but can be passed 0457. 37. 40%, 40%, world population live in an area where malaria is a threat to health. In recent years there have been many more cases of malaria in Africa. What is a social factor that is letting the spread of malaria get out of control? Migration of people because of wars. 38. The malarial parasite, Plasmodium, infects red blood cells and breaks down hemoglobin. Free heme groups are toxic to Plasmodium, and the parasite converts them into non-toxic, crystalline hematozoan, using an enzyme, HDP, which is found in all species of Plasmodium. What will be the long-term result of giving patients with malaria a drug which inhibits HDP? Slower reproduction of all species of Plasmodium in infected red blood cells. 39. What could cause an outbreak of malaria in a country where it had been eliminated? 1. Mosquitoes became resistant to insecticides. 2. Migration of population due to war. 3. Malarial parasites became resistant to quinine. Tuberculosis. 40. What is correct for tuberculosis, TB? Airborne transmission. 41. Which of these causative agents of disease can be transmitted by droplet infection? 1. Mycobacterium. 2. Morbilli virus. 42. A disease is an abnormal disruption to the functioning of an organism or part of an organism. Which disruption to function is an example of an infectious disease? Lung tissue is disrupted by the multiplication of prokaryotic cells. 43. The statements refer to the disease tuberculosis. Which explains why antibiotic treatment for TB takes a long time. 1. Pathogen lives inside human cells so is not accessible to the immune system. 2. The bacterial pathogen reproduces slowly. 44. Which disease is caused by a bacterium and can be spread by airborne droplets? Tuberculosis, TB. 45. The global mortality figures for some diseases in 2002 are shown in the table. Cause of death: millions of deaths. Percentage of all deaths: HIV, AIDS 2.84.4 terabytes 1.6 2.7 malaria 1.3 2.2 measles 0.6 1.1. How many of people died in 2002 from the bacterial diseases listed in the table? 1.6. 46. A person whose immune system is suppressed may become more susceptible to certain diseases. Which disease will this person not become more susceptible to? Sickle cell anemia. 47. Which of the followings increase the risk of contracting TB? 1. Drinking unpasteurized milk. 2. Living in overcrowded conditions. 48. Which row is correct? Disease, tuberculosis, TB, causative agent, bacterium, method of transmission, airborne, method of control, vaccination. 49. A country has fewer than 2.5 deaths per 100,000 people from TB in 1 year, and the next year this rose to 25 deaths per 100,000. What may have contributed to this change? 1. Decrease in contact tracing. 2. Increase in refugee camps. HIV, AIDS. 50. What do pathogens of HIV, AIDS, malaria, and TB have in common? Cell surface membrane, not common to all three pathogens. Genes, common to all three pathogens. Ribosomes, not common to all three pathogens. 51. Which row is correct? Disease, sickle cell anemia, transmission, genetic, infectious or non-infectious, non-infectious. Lecture notes for AS Level Biology by Muhammad Rashid Chatta. Cell number 030046100457. 52. Which list contains only infectious diseases? HIV, AIDS, malaria, measles, and tuberculosis, TB. 53. Why do people with HIV, AIDS have a higher occurrence of malaria than people without HIV, AIDS? HIV, AIDS suppresses the immune response to the malaria pathogen. 54. which statement about a non-infectious disease may be correct? It can be transmitted from mother to the child. 55. Which factor might have contributed to the spread of HIV/AIDS? Insufficient education. 56. What do pathogens of HIV, AIDS, malaria, and TB have in common? They have genes. 57. Which disease is treated with drugs that have a similar molecular structure to DNA nucleotides? HIV, AIDS. 58. Which statements about people infected with HIV, AIDS are correct? They may live for many years after infection. 59. Which of the following two diseases caused by viruses? Measles and smallpox. Antibiotics. 60. What will reduce the rate at which bacteria become resistant to antibiotics? 1. Prescribing two antibiotics with different modes of action. 2. Prescribing different antibiotics for the same bacterium. 3. Finishing a prescribed course of antibiotics. 61. Which row shows how penicillin kills bacteria? Process inhibited by penicillin, formation of peptidoglycan crosslinks, effect on bacteria, water enters and bacteria bursts. 62. What has contributed to the increase in antibiotic resistance in bacteria? 1. Mutations in bacterial DNA. 2. Patients not completing their antibiotic treatment. 63. What is the initial mechanism by which bacteria become resistant to antibiotics? Genetic mutation. 64. Some common antibiotics are listed. The action of each antibiotic is described. 1. Rifampicin inhibits RNA polymerase. 2. Streptomycin inhibits 70S ribosomes. 3. Neomycin inhibits DNA synthesis. 4. Ampicillin inhibits peptidoglycan synthesis. Which of these antibiotics will affect the activities of bacteria cells only? Ampicillin. 65. Which statement about the development of resistance to antibiotics in bacteria is correct? The proportion of antibiotic that resistant bacteria in a population only increase if the antibiotic is used. 66. Which diseases are treated with antibiotics? Cholera and TB. 67. Scientists study the multi-drug resistant bacterial infections in children, caused by one type of bacteria, between 2007 and 2015. The percentage of multi-drug resistant infections rose from 0.2% to 1.5%. What was the percentage increase in multi-drug resistant infections between 2007 and 2015? 1.5-0.2 equals 1.3/0.2 x 100 equals 650%. 68. Why is it necessary for a person with a bacterial infection to take antibiotics at evenly spaced time intervals? To maintain a concentration of antibiotic in the body which is lethal to the bacteria. 69. How does penicillin affect bacteria? It is a competitive inhibitor of an enzyme in cell wall synthesis. 70. Which use of antibiotics helps to reduce the spread of resistance in bacteria? Regularly. Changing the type of antibiotic used to treat particular bacterial infections. 71. The antibiotic tetracycline binds to the small subunits of bacterial ribosomes, stopping protein synthesis. Bacteria have become resistant to tetracycline due to the effect of mutations. Which effect could produce resistance to tetracycline? Preventing tetracycline from entering the bacterial cell. 72. Different antibiotics functions in different ways. It is important that the antibiotic kills the bacteria but does not harm the infected human. The antibiotic tetracycline has been found to affect the way in which human mitochondria function. Which statements could explain why human mitochondria function is affected by tetracycline? The antibiotics prevent translation by binding to 70S ribosomes. Lecture notes for AS Level Biology by Muhammad Rashid Chatta. Cell number 03004610-0457. 73. Some antibiotics work by binding to ribosomes. Which statement explains why these antibiotics kill bacteria cells but do not kill most human cells? The ribosomes of bacteria have a different structure from those of humans. 74. Bacteria that infect skin wounds and become resistant to the antibiotic, commonly used to kill them. Which statement explains how these bacteria could become resistant to the antibiotic? Random mutations in DNA allow some of the bacteria to survive in the presence of antibiotic. 75. Some antibiotics are used in animal feed to reduce disease. What explains why these antibiotics should not be used in the treatment of human diseases? Pathogenic bacteria may develop resistance to these antibiotics. 76. What is not an example of antibiotic action? Stimulation of antibody production. 77. How are the diseases cholera, malaria, and HIV/AIDS transmitted? Cholera, water; malaria, insect; HIV/AIDS, body fluid. 78. Which factors would help prevent which disease? Cholera, by disinfecting and chlorinating water; malaria, by covering water containers; TB, by vaccination. 79. Some facts about diseases are listed. Which statements apply to infectious diseases? May be carried by a vector, may be passed on by contact, and may enter through the mouth with food. 80. Which statement explains why people suffering from malaria and people suffering from TB can both live in Northern Europe but only TB can be passed on to other people there? Anopheles mosquitoes breed in Lecture notes for AS level. Lecture notes for AS. Lecture. '80. Which statement explains why people suffering from malaria and people suffering from TB can both live in Northern Europe but only TB can be passed on to other people there? Anopheles mosquitoes breed in subtropical and tropical areas. 81. The antibiotic streptomycin is now proving to be less effective in reducing the incidence of tuberculosis worldwide. What is the reason for this observation? There is an increase in the number of people infected with drug-resistant strains. 82. In parts of London there was increase in number of cases of TB in 1990s. Which factor is most likely to have contributed to this? Overcrowded accommodation. 83. Many doctors now restrict prescription for some antibiotics. They keep the most effective antibiotics in reserve for the most serious outbreaks of treatable diseases. What is the main reason for this? Resistant strains of bacteria may develop. 84. A village has improved its supply of clean water, sewage treatment, insect control, and milk pasteurization. Which disease present in the village will not be reduced by these measures? HIV/AIDS. Lecture notes for AS level biology by Muhammad Rashid Chatta. Cell number 030046100457.